Welcome back to the channel. This will be my update draft for UCL Fantasy as we approach the first deadline of this season. Stay tuned for next Tuesday on the 16th of September as I'll be going live around 2 hours before the official deadline, so expect that to be around 3:30 PM in the UK, and I'll be doing deadline streams throughout this season as I've done for the last couple of years. The same goes for FPL as well. Check the links in the description below. That includes my UCL Fantasy League and the code is SEINOF. And there's an auto-join link to make it even easier to become a part of my mini-league. If you were a member last season, all you have to do is use the same login details and the same account, and then you'll be automatically enrolled in my fantasy league there. And ultimately, we have the biggest in the world. It's growing in numbers, and we're looking to get to several thousands, actually, like we did last season. So it's all thanks to your support. We recently hit 35,000 as a milestone on the channel, and the next goal will be 36k, and then we'll push on towards even bigger targets in the future. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content for both FPL and UCL Fantasy. Stay tuned for even more videos and podcasts throughout the international break, and once club football returns, I'll still be here with live streams and videos on a regular basis, so you're well prepared for both fantasy formats and you can win your mini leagues and rise up the rankings. Check all the other links in the description for my Patreon and the championships if you want to support the channel even further and gain early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. I would also encourage you to join my Discord server for all the updates on UCL Fantasy and FPL. The same goes for my X, Instagram and Blue Sky. All those links can be found in the description. The same goes for my Spotify. Leaving a 5-star review is a very big help to the channel, and it's also another way of engaging with the content. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Compared to my first draft, there are several changes in terms of the structure and also the players that I'm investing in, and one of them is in the goalkeeper position. I'm going back to Jan Sommer, who was in my squad for Matchday 17 for that Champions League final, and starting him over Donnarumma was a massive mistake, but I do like Inter Milan's opening fixtures. There is a bit of a swing around Matchday 5, and I think for those wildcarding at that sort of time period, Sommer could be a great goalkeeper for the first half of the league phase, while Joan Garcia has some difficult fixtures to begin with. Then it gets much better for the Catalans in the second half of the league phase. But Barcelona haven't kept many clean sheets really over the summer and also going into this season, so Joan Garcia might make a lot of saves, but in terms of clean sheet potential, I would give the edge to Jan Sommer, but there is a massive difference in price by 1.5 million, and I think we've got plenty of options to pick from in this position, and you could definitely rotate with 2 4.5 million goalkeepers. But I did something similar towards the beginning of last season with Blažević and Di Gregorio, and that was a massive mistake in hindsight. I'm not saying that it can't work and ultimately you have to pick the right goalkeepers, but when you go for a David Raya, Jan Sommer, or these really reliable options between the sticks, it gives you a solid platform, and it also reduces the need to make a change in this position, and you don't want to be making transfers with your goalkeepers until you wildcard. So it's very important to get this right so you can focus your efforts and make those big moves in the outfield positions, particularly in the midfield and forward line. But let's not forget the defence, and I'm still looking at this position as well. Denzel Dumfries scored for the Netherlands during the international break, and Hakimi has had a poor start to this season, but I still rank him quite highly as a captaincy option in Matchday 1, and I do think he's better than Dumfries on paper, but only for the first matchday. If you look a bit longer term, you would give the edge to Inter Milan in terms of the fixtures, but they've also been a bit shaky under the new manager, as we saw in the Club World Cup, and they did lose the last home game in Serie A, which I discussed in my first draft video, whilst PSG are still going strong, and despite that blip against Tottenham Hotspur, they made a comeback in the UEFA Super Cup final and won on penalties to add another trophy to their extensive collection. But their manager Luis Enrique was involved in a cycling accident, I believe. It's nothing too serious, but he was in hospital, and there is the chance he could miss some games. I'll give you updates on that as well. But the likes of Desiree Doué and Ousmane Dembele will both miss the next month. In the case of Dembele, it could be up to 6 weeks, and Doué should be around 3 to 4 weeks, where he's going to miss plenty of football there for Paris Saint-Germain. Those are two massive blows, and they were considerations for my UCL Fantasy team, particularly Dembele as a forward this season, and that's something we can discuss later in the competition. But PSG's fixtures are quite tough. Hakimi is fixture-proof though. He can get ball recoveries, but the goals and assist potential is incredible for a defender, of course, as he is in this game, and he does play as a right-back for Paris Saint-Germain, but he bombs forward and gets into some great positions. He is such an exciting asset to own, but the only downside is he's so template with almost 50% ownership despite that tough start. But in terms of form, I would give the edge to Denzel Dumfries, and I could see myself going back to the Dutchman at some stage. But with Jan Sommer in goal, I'm not saying you can't double up on Inter Milan defensively, but I have less confidence in their clean sheet potential with their new manager compared to Simone Inzaghi last season. But let's now discuss a highlighted midfielder move, and that includes Vinicius Jr., who has been reclassified from a forward to a midfielder this time round, and he costs 9.5 million. But is it worth going for him at the expense of Yamal? That will be a massive question, I think. And for matchday 1, I do prefer Vinicius Jr. against Marseille at home, whilst Yamal has a potentially tricky test against Newcastle away. The atmosphere will be electric, but Yamal is arguably the best attacker in world football at the moment, and he's scoring goals. He's even on penalties for Barcelona, and if I were to get rid of Yamal, I'd still try to cover that Barca attack with the likes of Rafinha in the process. Lewandowski is not really an option. This could be his last season for the Catalans, and ultimately he's not guaranteed to start, with Ferran Torres getting plenty of minutes at this moment in time. But Vinicius has had a great start to this season, and he could be an enticing option with 13% ownership, so he is going under the radar a little bit. I know he was poor in the previous campaign, but we all know Vinicius' capabilities, especially in the Champions League. He's a big game player for Real Madrid, and whilst he hasn't translated that form to Brazil just yet, he still has that high ceiling for a forward, and this is technically out of position here. He is a bit like Mohamed Salah, where they're classified as midfielders in UCL Fantasy, but they are playing in even more advanced positions and sometimes as an inside forward. So Vinicius will be a great choice this season, and the same goes for Harry Kane. But should I sell Erling Haaland in the process? That will be a very tough one to really call. I think Man City have a better opening set of fixtures than Bayern Munich, but you also compare the two teams, and I would have more confidence in the Bavarians right now. But both Erling Haaland and Harry Kane have tremendous goal records, and no one has outscored Harry Kane since he joined Bayern Munich a couple of years ago. And Erling Haaland averages a goal per game in this competition and also for Manchester City. So ideally you'd go for both, but there's also Kylian Mbappe and plenty more forwards where that came from. It's impossible to fit all of them in, and in UCL Fantasy compared to FPL, I think we have even more forwards to choose from this time round. But let's discuss my starting 11 with these potential moves, and this will be full of differentials, to be fair. And my goalkeeper hasn't changed between the sticks, with Di Gregorio with 5% ownership facing Borussia Dortmund at home. It's not a great fixture, but I think what you have to really bear in mind here is the goalkeeper rotation, and Di Gregorio and Sommer have a very good set up until matchday 8, and it's worth mentioning that every single team plays at the exact same time in matchday 8, which could also facilitate a wildcard being used at that stage, so you can use it as a limitless. You cheap out your bench, you see everyone who starts, and then wildcard, and then invest all your money in the starting 11. But that's the only time where you basically can't avoid both of your goalkeepers playing at the same time. But for matchdays 1 to 7, there are several goalkeeper pairings that could do the trick, and Inter Milan with Juventus is one of them. Now, the other combinations that are also worth mentioning are PSG with Marseille, Ajax and PSV Eindhoven, Bayer Leverkusen and Eintracht Frankfurt, Benfica and Sporting, Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. So I think going for Kobel and Neuer could be very enticing. Club Brugge and Union Saint-Gilloise, which I wouldn't be too keen on, but it's another option for you to consider. And I think this one would be appealing to a lot of people, going for Joan Garcia and Thibaut Courtois, covering two teams from El Clasico, Barcelona and Real Madrid. Both of them will rotate very nicely all the way up until matchday 8. There is also Napoli and Atalanta to think about, on top of this current goalkeeper pairing I've got of Di Gregorio and Sommer as well. Now, in terms of other goalkeeper pairings that could work for the first 6 match days, and maybe you wildcard in matchday 7 and limitless in 8, or do it the other way around. And personally, I wouldn't limitless in matchday 8, which I can discuss in a chip strategy video. You can go for an Atletico Madrid and Athletic Bilbao goalkeeper pairing of Oblak and Unai Simon, and there's also Man City and Newcastle. The same goes for Liverpool and Spurs. All those goalkeeper combinations can work very nicely for the first 6 match days, and then for matchday 7, the last few pairings I just mentioned, they will all clash in matchday 7 as well, but it's still fairly decent, and ultimately it's very difficult to find an ideal goalkeeper pairing with great fixtures, clean sheet potential, and also no clashes. But what I've just mentioned here in this extensive goalkeeper section is a few combinations you could consider for your UCL fantasy teams. Let's now move on to my defensive line, and I've got a few differentials in here like Romero and Jurrien Timber, even though the Arsenal player doesn't have the lowest ownership per se with 10%, but Romero comes in with 2% ownership, and he was incredible for Atalanta in UCL Fantasy several years ago. He even kept a clean sheet at Anfield at one stage and got multiple ball recoveries for the Italian side. And for Tottenham Hotspur, he's had some ups and downs, but he is still a top defender on his day, and Spurs have the best fixtures throughout the entire league phase. So I think Romero is a great investment, but you've also got Pedro at the same price point, and whilst he won't get as many ball recoveries, he certainly will get more goal contributions than Christian Romero. So this is something I will reconsider. You might even want to double up on Spurs' defence based on the fixtures, which is crazy. I'd probably diversify your defensive line a little bit and only go for one Tottenham defender, but it is a strategy that is worth consideration at the very least. And with Arsenal, Gabriel is the safest defender there in terms of minutes, but he does cost 5.5 million. He'll get more ball recoveries than Jurriën Timber, and recent reports indicate that Ben White is set to return this weekend, but he'll probably be in the squad against Nottingham Forest. But this could be a problem in the Champions League, and Timber didn't have his minutes managed very well last season because Ben White missed the majority through injury, which is quite rare for him. But I think we could see rotation in every single area of that Arsenal defence, even Gabriel at some stage, especially if they secure that qualification to the next round. But I think Timber and Ben White could see some minutes being shared there in the Champions League and Premier League, so that can make it slightly unpredictable. If Ben White does miss out multiple games though, Jurriën Timber is a great option at only 5 million, and he's very robust, versatile, and also reliable for the Gunners. Virgil van Dijk, the same goes for him, of course, another Dutchman in the heart of this defensive line, facing Atletico Madrid first, and Liverpool's fixtures are decent overall. I also think Van Dijk will be one of the highest scoring defenders in the league phase, with ball recovery potential, the odd goal here and there from set pieces, and he is such a unit. He has been ever present in Liverpool's success over the last couple of years, and Hakimi, of course, will be a great option irrespective of Paris Saint-Germain's tough fixtures. He is a template option though, with 48% ownership at the time of this recording. Let's now go on to the midfield, and I'm also going for this 4-4-2 formation at this moment in time. And remember, you want to have those players on your bench feature towards the end of the match day. And for the first game week, we have 3 days within match day 1, so the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This won't be the case, of course, between match days 2 and 7, and then for match day 8, everyone plays at the same time, so you've only got one shot at the captaincy, and you can't make substitutions, and the same goes for match day 17 for the Champions League final. But Rafinha away to Newcastle is still a great choice. His ownership is around 38%, but Yamal is the template pick from that Barcelona attack, and the fact he's on penalties now and he's scoring so regularly for the Catalans makes him so enticing, but he does cost a little bit more than Rafinha. And last season, one of my top picks and suggestions from the summer was to go for Rafinha instead of Yamal, and at that time, Rafinha had only 5% ownership. Things are a little bit different this time round. I think Yamal might be the better pick in isolation, but it's all about making it work with your budget too, and it requires a downgrade elsewhere in my UCL Fantasy team. Mohamed Salah is a great choice. He is quite expensive, I know, compared to FPL, where he does cost 14.5 million. This seems like nothing, but in UCL Fantasy you have so many great options, especially in the forward line, that going for a Salah makes it very difficult to get everybody you want to, especially in terms of the premiums. But Vinicius Jr. also completes a very solid midfield, and we can't forget about Moises Caicedo, who is a massive differential with 2% ownership. And the reason why he's in here, despite facing Bayern Munich away, is the ball recovery potential. Against Fulham, he got 23 defensive actions in FPL, and there is a new system, of course, implemented in that game called defensive contributions, and I think that could translate very well into UCL Fantasy because he intercepts the ball very well, he makes a lot of clearances, blocks, and wins a lot of balls there with the tackling. That's his best attribute. He is everywhere on that pitch for Chelsea, and I think will be one of the best ball recoveries throughout the league phase. And another argument you could make is the fact that in tougher games like Bayern Munich away, Caicedo will be relied upon more to cover that Chelsea defence, and he's going to be winning the ball a lot for the Blues. So I think he could get a lot of points here, maybe 4 to 5 points based on the ball recoveries alone. I'm not expecting a clean sheet, and ultimately with Caicedo, you won't get too many goals or assists, but he's one of the best defensive midfielders in world football, and with ball recoveries, not many will better him in that aspect. And the forward line is still very solid with the likes of Pavlidis and Harry Kane. Now, whilst the Greek striker scored for his country over the international break, he has had a terrible start to this season and hasn't even started every single game for Benfica, so that's something that's worth monitoring. But for match day 1 against Karabag, where Benfica ranked very highly in terms of the goal scoring odds and also the clean sheet probabilities, I still think Pavlidis could be one of the best captaincy options as discussed in my first draft video, and Harry Kane does have a tough fixture on paper against Chelsea at home. His record against the Blues isn't necessarily that great, but Kane is still very reliable, and I would back him in any home game in the Champions League, even against the best teams in world football. So I do like the starting 11. It is a little bit differential, and Benfica's fixtures aren't particularly great in general. They do face Bayer Leverkusen and Newcastle over the coming weeks, and there's even a trip to Chelsea as well. But I think Benfica can still score plenty of goals in those matches, and Pavlidis will be a great option for Matchday 1. I believe this sort of structure would facilitate a Matchday 2 wildcard actually, or using it very early on in the league phase, but that isn't necessarily the best case scenario for everyone watching, because a lot depends on how you set your team up for Matchday 1, and that will also have a bearing and impact on when you wildcard and limitless. But my suggestion at the moment is to use both chips early, which is something I've talked about for many years. And whilst I wildcarded in Matchday 13 last season, I am feeling a little bit different this time round. But Harry Kane is a great option facing Chelsea. I still think with 23% ownership, he is going a little bit under the radar, and his goal scoring record is incredible. But on my bench, I've got some great options for Matchday 1 at least, and Jan Sommer away to Ajax isn't necessarily one of them. That is Inter Milan's toughest game on paper up until Matchday 5 arguably, but I've got two Sporting players. One of them is a defender in the Ba, who is facing Kara Almaty at home, and also Luis Suarez, who has 1% ownership, and I think he could get the bulk of the chances in that plum fixture, and Sporting are top of the clean sheet odds for Matchday 1. The other option is a 5 million midfielder in Akliuch, who faces Club Brugge away from home, but Luis Suarez could be the best one from that bench set, and I think he could make a real impact. And ultimately what you want to do here is sub out your lowest scoring players who play on the Tuesday and Wednesday, and then when you bring on this quartet potentially, or trio off the bench, you can get even more points in the process. And the same goes for the captaincy. My first option is Vinicius Jr. facing Marseille at home, but if needed, I'll go to Harry Kane facing Chelsea at home. And if I also have another blank there, or I'm really greedy and want even more points, then I could bring on one of those bench options and captain Luis Suarez against Kara Almaty, which is very risky to be fair. I know the fixture is great on paper, but to captain a 5 million forward like Luis Suarez, who is still adapting to his new club, that is definitely going to be a big risk. It's not like we're captaining Victor Gyökeres from last season, and his incredible goal-scoring record for Sporting is tried, tested, and proven, but that could be another different way of playing Matchday 1 and really going for it, and that would also facilitate that early wildcard in Matchday 2 or 3. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. When are you planning to use the wildcard and limitless chips? Ultimately, the wildcard is still the most powerful in the long term, and you want to use it at the exact right time, and that ultimately depends on your team structure and how you set things up from the get-go, and that's why Matchday 1 can be so important. Based on the recent injury updates, there are several changes to my top 10 captaincy list, and it's worth highlighting that for the clean sheet odds, Sporting are at home against Kara Almaty during Matchday 1, and all the top 6, which includes Benfica, PSG, Olympiacos, Real Madrid, and Manchester City, they all have home fixtures for the opening match day. I'm quite surprised about Man City being ranked so highly because they face Napoli, who are one of the best teams in Europe right now. And in last place, Kara Almaty remain bottom. They have a 6% chance against Sporting at home, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But if you want a kind of extended list, here you go as things stand, and I will be showing you the updated and final list, of course, during the Matchday 1 deadline stream next Tuesday. Tottenham are 7th. Arsenal, Bayern Munich and Inter Milan are in the top 10. Liverpool and PSV narrowly miss out on that elite group, but they still have a decent chance on paper. Now with the captaincy list, Dembele was originally 3rd, but I have swapped things around a little bit, and there is also a new name in here in Pedro Gonçalves facing Kara Almaty at home. I think he has such a high ceiling and a great record in the Champions League over the years. His main concern and problem has been the injuries, but Mbappe remains top facing Marseille at home. Erling Haaland is 2nd, and Vinicius Jr. enters the podium for the first time this season. Pedro Gonçalves is 4th, and that fixture looks extremely appealing. Yamal is 5th, facing Newcastle away, and Pavlidis, despite a terrible start to the season for Benfica, if he starts, I would rank him very highly against Karabag at home. Harry Kane is 7th. Salah, Hakimi, and Rafinha complete the top 10, and that's another new name to this list in Hakimi, who has so many avenues to points, as we saw in the Club World Cup and throughout UCL Fantasy last season. Let me know if there are any other captaincy options that deserve to be mentioned. Maybe Luis Suarez from Sporting could be one of them, and there are plenty more where that came from. Maybe Michael Elise, or you're going for a Cole Palmer, Joao Pedro. It might depend on which side you back between Bayern Munich and Chelsea, but there are some mouth-watering ties for Matchday 1, and this continues throughout the entire league phase. We have reached the end of the update draft for UCL Fantasy, and this will be my 5th year covering the Champions League, and it is a blast talking about this with all of you, and those deadline streams are always a lot of fun, not to mention chaotic, especially when it comes to the opening match day. There's a lot more content to look forward to. A UCL Fantasy chip strategy guide is headed your way, and there could be one more draft if I find another sort of structure that I'm very appealed by, but that team selection is imminent, and it will take place before the deadline, of course, next Tuesday. And there's even more FPL videos where that came from. There'll be a reaction stream this weekend. The same goes for a deadline stream on Saturday. Not only that, there's going to be wildcard videos, free hit squads from time to time, and transfer tips every single week. The same goes for team selections and also predicted lineups from time to time. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content for both fantasy formats, which I'll cover throughout the season, and keep your eyes peeled for even more live streams in the coming weeks. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. My Discord server, the FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you on Saturday for the FPL deadline stream, and next Tuesday, I'll be going live for the first time in the Champions League.